1. Some brief facts about myself. I'm a lesbian. In high school. I wasn't out or even completely aware of my sexual orientation, but I wasn't really interested in boys at all. In the 10 years since, I've dated people of all different sizes, and I'm not thin either, so weight has never really been something that influenced my attraction to someone else. Anyway, I had a few guys openly into me in high school, and they were all unfortunate. The most notable of these was Jim. We met in my sophomore year, his junior, when we had an art class together. I sat with him and his friend Dave, and we quickly became friends. They both had neckbeardish tendencies, but overall they were fine. We would talk while we worked on various projects. At some point our teacher told us we couldn't talk during class anymore, so we started passing notes instead. One day, during our usual note-passing sessions, Jim asked me if I would date him. I politely declined, and he immediately became standoffish. Then, of course, Dave passed me a note asking me why I wouldn't date Jim, and I just said I wasn't interested in him that way and saw us as friends, which at the time was true. Then Dave replies, "Well, what about me then?" Jeez, Dave, you're such a good friend. A little while later, prom was approaching, and Jim asked me to be his date. Once again I declined, even on the basis of going as friends, because I didn't want him to get the wrong idea. Some of my friends thought I should have said yes, just because only juniors and seniors could attend prom unless they had an older date. I wasn't that desperate. Not much else happened that year. Then the next year we shared a broadcasting class where we had to do a lot of group. I teamed up with Jim and 4 others, including my friend Lisa. Lisa was also pretty good friends with Jim at that point. Lisa was a sweet girl, but kinda known for being a bit promiscuous. One Monday, she came up to me really upset about something that had happened with Jim over the weekend. Jim worked as a cashier at the local grocery store. That weekend, Lisa came in with some boy she was fooling around with, said hi to him, and then left. For some reason, this caused Jim to text her,
"Fuck you, slut. I hope you get AIDS and die."
Of course, I was pretty appalled and decided to keep my distance from Jim from then on, just interacting with him enough to get our group projects done. A few months later, our class took a field trip to a local college to tour their mass communications department. I brought my digital camera with me and snapped some selfies with several of my friends that were there, including a few with Jim, and he stuck pretty close to me throughout the tour. Then, on the bus ride back, he started texting me, once again asking me out. I gave the same response as I did previously, but this time he was irate.
"All you shallow girls are the same. It's because I'm fat, isn't it?"
Nope, unfortunately your personality is piss poor. You're rude, whiny, creepy, and none of that has to do with your weight or the wispy hairs on your chin and neck. Thankfully, the year was almost done at that point, and I didn't have to deal with him much longer. However, over the next few years, I saw frequent Facebook posts from him with similar themes. Women are shallow sluts, and nobody will give him a chance, even though he's so nice. Yeah. Okay. 3 years later, when I was a sophomore in college, I got a text from a random number one day. Turns out it was Jim, shockingly apologizing for making me uncomfortable when we were in high school. I was pretty amazed at his maturity, and we struck up a conversation. However, it quickly turned weird. He started sending me stuff like,
"Do you believe that the world is a lie? We're all in hell and the demons walk among us."
I don't know, I've never thought of anything like that.
"You're not the same she used to be. You're not as deep."
What? We literally never had any conversation resembling that in high school, to my knowledge. I never heard from him again after that. Later, he got married wearing a Bass Pro Shop t-shirt. Weird choice, but I'm glad he found someone deep enough for him. 2. Hello everyone. So I just had an encounter with an online neckbeard who very nearly destroyed my Discord server with his bull. This is mostly me ranting about his antics, but it's all true, and I need to kind of get it out of my system. So I first met our neckbeard, who we will call Gatorbeard. We'll explain in a bit. and became somewhat friends with him over our mutual love of the Monster Hunter games. When we first got to know each other, he exposed how he was interested in becoming a writer. So we would talk about writing-related stuff too. Then, sometime later, I decided to start a Discord server for writers, mainly for my fellow writer friends, as a place where we can talk about our stories and works, as well as share and help each other with ideas. The server is only accessible to people I share the link with, of course, so private. And when I first made it, I made sure that every new member knew the rules of the server, Gatorbeard included, and at first, everything was fine. Time passed and things were still fine. We'd post ideas to discuss them, and ask for help if we needed it. We would share our works with each other. It's not perfect, but it works for my friends and I. Gatorbeard was pretty quiet to start with. We'd still talk about Monster Hunter and Godzilla, which we both also like. But steadily he became more involved with the server, posting some of his work like the rest of us. Now, most of his work, at this time, consisted of drawings of various monsters and other beasts, usually mutated in some form. They were usually alligators or crocodiles of some sort, hence his name for this story. Now, I'm not against this kind of creativity in any way, but one of our other members expressed discomfort with it, and simply asked him if he would warn them when he was planning to post one of these monster pics. He promised he would do this, but then never did, and would occasionally spam the server with his drawings and descriptions of how these monsters would kill their prey and stuff. This drove our sensitive member from the server, sadly, and I did have a talk with him about it, then made a channel for drawing-related things, so if people wanted to, they could avoid the drawings in the future, and so we could all post our own drawings, I'd dabble myself, if we so wished. But the worst was yet to come. Gatorbeard started to message me privately, asking for advice on stories he was finally getting around to writing. I was not against this, of course, as this was why I created the server in the first place, so at first, I happily gave him all the advice he wanted. But then he posted a link to the first story, and immediately I noticed two things. Firstly, he hadn't taken any of the advice I gave him, and secondly, the story wasn't actually his at all. It was actually his rendition of the movie Rampage, only the mutated animals in his version were all reptilian, and the main one was his gator mutant OC. I mentioned this to him, and he became defensive, saying it was still fan fiction, so I just didn't argue with him. I probably should have, looking back on it. This continued for several months. Gatorbeard would come into my private messages with his original ideas, asking me for advice, only to ignore whatever advice I gave him and post his stories, fanfiction, which were also really badly formatted and just, well, bad in general. It was getting old real fast, but I wasn't about to kick someone from the server just because I found them annoying. Anyway, his behavior continued and even escalated gradually, to the point where I found out he started to pester other people on the server with his fanfiction, passing off rewritten horror movies as his original ideas to them, though pretty much everyone knew better because, well, it was obvious. But things really became bad when he came up with a new idea, which was actually a cross between Demon High School, Rosario Vampire, and a story concept that I had discussed a few weeks prior. And again, he was passing this off as his original idea, even if one of the characters in his original idea was mine. This was the beginning of the end. I confronted him about this, only to receive no response. He muted me for like a week, and frankly it pissed me off. So I decided to teach him a lesson by kicking him from the server for a while. But something in my gut told me to make sure of a few things before I did so. So I privately messaged each of the other members of the server and asked them what they thought of Gatorbeard, and told them my intention, and if they thought it was fair, etc. My replies blew up, and this sealed Gatorbeard's fate. I found out that he had broken a bunch of the rules for the server in private messages to people directly, namely to one of my best friends, Jenny. Now, Jenny is one of the nicest, most soft-spoken girls I know. We've been friends for years, way longer than I've known Gatorbeard. And I know her very well, well enough to know that Jenny suffers from anxiety and depression, if she becomes too stressed or overwhelmed, or pressured or whatever. It was one of the major reasons I invited her to the server, so she had a place to escape to if she ever needed it. Jenny is not only a writer, she's an artist who does amazing work, but only does work for recreational purposes or for commissions, which are totally worth it. I've commissioned her probably dozens of times. Since I created the drawing channel on the Discord, she'd put up sketches and drawings of hers to show us and ask for advice. So I'm pretty sure that's how Gatorbeard found out that she draws. And draws better than he ever could. This is where it gets interesting. Jenny has a twin sister, who is also one of my best friends, Ginny. Ginny is also a writer and an artist, but she is definitely not as soft-spoken as Jenny is. Ginny has said herself that she is meaner than Jenny, in the sense that she will stand up for herself a bit more and will in general just not take other people's bullshit. Ginny is also super protective of Ginny, and will often stand up for her on her behalf. So when I sent this private message concerning Gatorbeard out, Ginny let me know what he'd been doing to Jenny without holding anything back. Gatorbeard had been pestering Jenny to do free art for him. His messages to her had started innocently enough, asking her for advice for his own drawings, but would usually end with him getting frustrated, asking her to just draw it for him. Jenny would remind him that she only does commissions, and she'd be happy to do it if he would commission her to which he replied,
Nah, request only, please.
Winky face. She of course said no, that she doesn't do requests, but he apparently never got the hint and would message her. Ginny sent me screenshots of these messages.
When are you gonna do my request?
Or something along those lines, where Jenny would always remind him that she only takes commissions, but again, he wouldn't take the hint and just kept pestering her. Jenny went on to explain that this had been going on up until recently, when Jenny took a break from being online due to her latest bout of depression. Jenny told me that she was sure that Gatorbeard had caused this because of his constant harassment to get her to draw something for him for free. Moreover, after Jenny disappeared from the server for a few days, for a break, Gatorbeard started to message Jenny to try and pester her to pester Jenny for free art.
And I was pissed.
I can be very protective of my friends, so to even say that I was pissed was an understatement. I very gently approached Jenny about this, asking her if she was okay and reassuring her after I told Jenny told me what happened. She confirmed it all, and even shared that Gatorbeard had taken a story idea that she and Jenny had discussed, written it as his own, atrociously of course, and sent it to her, which had worsened her depression. Again, I was seething, but I stayed calm, and told Jenny that though I wished she had come to me sooner, I was glad to know now, and wouldn't let Gatorbeard bother her any more.
So he got his ass banned.
As per my own rules, I sent him a message before the ban, of course, letting him know just why he was being banned, and that he would also be blocked, etc., etc. Then immediately smashed that ban button afterwards. I warned all my other friends, Jenny and Ginny included, to block him as well after informing them that he was banned. To say that the server expressed mutual relief was an understatement. I wish all the people he'd bothered had come to me sooner, but I can understand that a lot of them are just nice people and didn't want to bother me with what they thought were their own problems. Still, I made sure to let them know that they can come to me for anything, so long as it wasn't their clearly plagiarized work. You'd think this was the end, but oh no, it's not. Though we're getting there. See, after telling everyone to block Gatorbeard, I kind of forgot to do it myself. So the day after I banned him, I came back to half a wall of private messages from him on Discord. Now, remember when I said I sent him a message clearly stating why he had been banned from the server? And also remember how this guy cannot seem to get the memo? Well, his last messages to me before I blocked him were him expressing confusion as to why he was removed from the server, asking me if I had done it by accident, and if I could please add him again and whatnot. It was a literal eye roll. Anyway, I'm half expecting him to try and get in touch with me again somehow, and I've told Jenny and Ginny as well as our other members to let me know if he comes crawling back to try and bother them again. because again, I will not tolerate any of my friends being harassed. So that's my story. Thanks for listening, and F you, Gatorbeard. 3. I dated a Type B neckbeard in my freshman year of high school. I say Type B because he wasn't fat at all and he didn't wear a fedora, but everything else is pretty spot on. He was just a little taller than me and extremely skinny. He had greasy hair that he always spiked up, a face full of acne. A black trench coat he wore even when it was warm, and while his smell wasn't exactly overwhelming, it was definitely noticeable. It was a combination of sweat, fast food, and cat urine. We had one class and lunch together. I was very much the awkward, quiet girl who would rather read than talk to people, so I was a little surprised when he started talking to me. He had noticed the anime pictures on my binders, and we got to talking about different shows we liked. We also had similar tastes in music and movies, and he always came off as very nice, so eventually I mustered up the courage and asked him out. I had never had a boyfriend before, so I was super excited when he said yes. It went downhill almost immediately. He insisted that he had to walk me to every one of my classes, because it was the gentlemanly thing to do. Ugh. Even though most of my classes were nowhere near his. It seemed like a sweet gesture, but after being late to several classes and getting a warning from my teachers, I told him that it really wasn't necessary and that I would just wait for him for lunch and after school. He blew up and demanded that he be by my side at all times, otherwise another guy might try something with me. I was pretty much a nobody and people didn't really bother me much, so I thought his reaction was completely unjustified. But whatever, I let it go. After school, he would call me as soon as he got home. The conversation was little more than catching up about classes that day, and then nothing. We would literally be silent on the phone for hours. Occasionally, we would talk about a show one of us was watching or a game we were playing, but then it would lapse back into silence. If I tried to suggest that we should hang up, he had a meltdown about how I was trying to get rid of him and didn't care about him. So we just sat on the phone silent except for when I ate dinner. He would give me 1 hour to eat with my family and then call back. And when I went to bed, every single day. I was completely exhausted by him after a single week, but I thought maybe he was just scared because I was his first girlfriend and that hopefully he would settle down eventually. I invited him to go out with myself and one of my girlfriends just to hang out. We went to the mall, where he walked in between my friend and I the entire time. She and I hugged once, and he pushed us apart and told her that nobody was allowed to touch me but him. We thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He didn't allow her to come anywhere near me all day. She texted me later, after we all went home, and told me the guy was a psycho. I knew she was right. But I desperately tried to see the best in people and wanted to give him a chance to calm down. It went about as well as you can imagine. Over the course of another week, he got more possessive and began to accuse me of cheating on him. During one of our phone calls, he told me that as his girlfriend, I was obligated to sleep with him. I was a virgin at the time and wasn't ready to take that step and told him as much. But he didn't believe me and accused me of cheating again. He followed it up by telling me that if I wouldn't sleep with him, then he would just drug a drink and do it while I was sleeping. I've always been a fairly non-confrontational person, so I couldn't think of anything to say to that. I hung up and began avoiding him at school. He tried calling and texting me for a few days, alternating between apologies and calling me a dumb bitch who would regret dumping him, before he finally gave up. All in all, we dated for a whopping 2.5 weeks. The epilogue to this story is that less than a month later he was dating someone else. One of my other girlfriends who, when I told her about that last phone call, had been completely appalled and comforted me about the ordeal. I guess she's into that sort of thing. No judgment here, I guess. 4. This is the story of a neckbeard that I would like to call Ponybeard. The reason will be clear soon enough. So there was a period in my life that I was part of a role-playing community. To be honest, it was an erotic role-playing community. I was also, please don't judge as I no longer am, a furry. A fursona, personal furry persona, was a shapeshifter, favoring the shape of a cat girl or a dragon, but open to take any shape my role-playing partner would prefer. Add to this that I am a woman, love games, and am rather shy at first but bubbly once you get to know me. Neckbeard bait a la carte. During my role-playing times, I was also rather depressed, and for some reason only found some form of happiness in how people reacted to my skills in role-playing, and how well I made my persona look. For the role-playing, I would be on an online chat app called IMVU, which has been very popular for this exact reason, and allowed you to highly customize your looks, though not for free. I admit to having spent money on there, and even using my ERP, erotic roleplay, to earn the credits you'd have to buy with money. One day I was chilling in one of my favorite furry hangouts, when Ponybeard appeared. Ponybeard presented himself as I think you can guess it, an anthropomorphic My Little Pony. At the time, I was being my dragon self, in my favorite purple colors, and he jumped on the idea that I was that little dragon from the My Little Pony series. I told him that I didn't even know what he was talking about, that I just enjoy being a dragon, but I'm a shapeshifter. He asked me to do some RP. I was bored, so I agreed. He was decent enough at RP, and after that we had a few more and started hanging out and chatting. This guy was a mess. He was in his 40s, I was about 22 at the time, obsessed with My Little Pony, literally living in his parents' basement and unable to get or keep a job. Other than that, he was nice enough, at least for now. I did enjoy role-playing with him. We ended up doing more in-depth role-plays, with full-on storylines and character building, not focused on the erotic parts. Despite the way the storyline would go, he would always make my character be a saint and queen of his character, however. But I figured that is just how he rolled, and I didn't have any alarm bells ringing yet. Before anyone says, there are clear red flags everywhere. I didn't know anything about neckbeards at the time. I was naive, and thought that guys who behaved nice were actually nice guys. I'd never heard about nice guys or neckbeards, so I had no idea what I was getting into. One day, Ponybeard convinced me to add him on Skype, and I would live to regret that. From that day on, he would want to be in video call and Skype every day. He would learn when I would be home from school and would call me exactly when I arrived in my bedroom. He would be decent at first, but as time went by he got a bit comfortable and would start being in call shirtless. Not exactly a sight to behold. You see, he was not very fat, he was just quite a bit overweight, but he was also very unhygienic. Seeing his greasy hair every day on camera was one thing, but seeing his chest hair with God knows what stuck in it is another. I tried to tactfully let him know he should shower more, but he would come up with excuses like how his parents didn't allow him to use a shower more than once a week. Then it was suddenly once a month, then it was never. I doubt that to be true, but I eventually dropped the subject. Eventually, he would be in the calls in nothing but his stained boxers while on his bed, so-called accidentally showing the boxers and how full they were with his crotch. I told him I was very uncomfortable with it, and he stopped doing so. For a while. One day he suggested I just become his girlfriend, just like that. I told him no because of multiple reasons. One, I had just recently gotten out of a very abusive and very damaging relationship and needed time to become myself again. Two, he lives in America, I live in Europe. Even if I wouldn't mind the distance, me being a student and him not having a job meant we would never be able to meet. 3, if and when I do want to start a relationship, I want it to be with someone I know I can have a secure future with. He claims to have all these issues making him unable to have a job, but also get no support or anything, so he lives in his parents' basement on their dime. That does not tell me that he can be part of a stable future, and I refuse to carry the burden of it all. Truth be told, there were more obvious reasons involved, but those were the ones I gave him. This is when things start to turn sour. Apparently, me rejecting him is the equivalent of declaring war, as he suddenly started telling our mutual friends about me. Started telling them how I was a slut and was begging him to just fly me over to him so I could become his sex slave. Luckily my friends know this is not true, as they know who I am, and know that I certainly would not do anything of the sort, unless it would be part of a roleplay, in which case it was just acting, not real. He didn't stop there, though. He spread pictures of very fat naked women with my face photoshopped on them, in order to try and get people to believe him, and in order to fake revenge porn me. Luckily his Photoshop skills were bad, that even a toddler would be able to tell it was fake. Him doing all of this didn't get to me, as I simply blocked him everywhere and proceeded to ignore him. However, through Skype he managed to figure out my mail address, which uses my full real name, and through that he found me on Facebook. On Facebook he proceeded to stalk me. I don't have anything personal on my Facebook. The closest to an address I have there is my country, and other than that, I have nothing on there that could be used to dox me. But he did figure out who my sister is, as we share a last name, and in pictures together I have certain appearance traits that are rather similar. He sent my sister a message, one of the photoshopped pictures with a message that I'm being an online slut. My sister didn't respond, rather just took a screenshot and sent it to me saying, "Look what this loser is trying to make me believe." Gotta love my sister, but messaging her was his worst mistake. I sent the guy a message saying, "If you don't leave me, my family, and my friends alone, I swear to God I will rile up everyone I know to massively report you on Facebook, IMVU, Kick, and Skype, so that you will end up getting banned." I know that especially his IMVU account is very precious to him, as he has spent hundreds of his parents' dollars in it already, so that if he gets banned he loses it all. Not only that, I told him that now that I know his Facebook, I have also found his parents, and I had screenshots of all the dirty lies he had been telling me about them. I had a habit of taking screenshots of anything said in IMVU in case people would try to claim things, so I had proof. At first he thought I was bluffing. Then I sent him a screenshot of him literally saying, "My parents are such dumbasses. They don't realize that I have their credit card and have been spending a lot of their money on here." Yes, he tended to speak like an angsty teen girl from time to time. Well, after I showed him this screenshot, he left me alone. I haven't heard from him since, and I'm not in a hurry to hear from him again. And before you ask, no, I don't have any of those screenshots anymore. This was a few years ago, and the laptop I used back then has died before I could make a backup of the hard drive, which I do still have for the day I get an adapter to put it in my PC. 5. The interaction I had today while out with my significant other seemed so genuinely fake I didn't think I should post it. But hey, I think it's kind of funny, and thought others might get a chuckle out of it too. I also don't really have people in my life who would know what a neckbeard is, so I thought it best to share here. Additionally, as clarification, since it makes the story seem faker, I'm autistic, so if my actions seem odd or stilted, that's why. Into the story. So my significant other and I went to our local game shop to support it, after it had been closed for 3 months, to get a 3DS charger for his aunt. I'm a regular at this GameStop whenever I'm not at college, as my dad or SO will take me to go Funko hunting. Having gone there pretty much every other week since about 10th grade, I've gotten to know the staff by name and I'm pretty cordial with them. Today the store manager, SM, was working alone, checking inventory and manning the counters. I greeted SM by name as usual. He stuck to the script today and seemed a bit less enthused. I shrugged it off, as he was probably stressed, being short-staffed and because of the virus. My SO and I were perusing the store when a commercial for this new samurai game comes on, Ghost of Tsushima. We couldn't recall the name, but SO was talking to me about how it was like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but set in feudal Japan. Someone interjects asking, "Is it anything like Mark of the Ninja? If you even know what I'm talking about." Now granted, only 6 people are allowed in the GameStop at a time right now, but I honestly hadn't noticed the guy there. Enter Neckbeard. Neckbeard was a stout guy, white shirt with a marbled grey pattern, circular glasses, and a camo MAGA hat. It's North Florida, so it's not too shocking to see people in MAGA hats, so it really didn't faze me at first. Additionally, I didn't really think too much of NB's appearance, as this is a neckbeard, but in retrospect he fits the bill to a T. My SO reiterates how he described the game to me, and talked about the combat of the game as the commercial showed it. We stand in line as NB is checking out with SM. My SO was getting a pop he'd wanted for a really long time, Mayik the Liar. NB starts chatting to SM, looking over at the big figure display case. I see you finally sold the Captain Marvel statue. I wonder if the guy who bought it has the same plans for it as I did. My immediate assumption was, he's gonna come in that statue. Maybe it's because I saw a lame Stone Toss comic making the rounds, or NB's tone. But that was a train of thought. Gross. Silence. I was gonna melt it down and use it for parts to make something useful. NB waxes, again an awkward silence. I could have come up with a million different witty responses to that comment, but what I said was literal. You could probably find the raw materials for cheaper at Home Depot. Yeah, but it's about it not being that thing. You know there's a deleted scene for Captain Marvel. A guy flirts with her, and she breaks his arm, then steals his clothes and motorcycle. She's totally the bad guy. If you watch the scene, it's slightly different than he described it. Guess that's why it was deleted. NB finishes his transaction by then, and left without another word. We go to chat with SM, and the quiet, sour mood is instantly gone. He's making eye contact, sounds chipper, talks to us about how it's really important to pre-order. As my SO says, we were shooting the shit. Even daft ASD me notices the shift. I wrote it off as customer service voice. SO and I finish the transaction and head out. My god, that guy was a total neckbeard. We encountered one in the wild. I guess. Only old writers give a shit about Captain Marvel, so... When he mentioned his plans for the statue, did you think he was gonna come on it? We shared a laugh over the thought. SO explained to me. SM was uncomfortable with NB, and that's why he was acting distant. The real kicker, though, is this point I brought up. If NB doesn't like Captain Marvel, why'd he pay attention to a deleted scene? Like, you have to go out of your way to find that through, like, a Blu-ray release or YouTube video? You know, who gives a shit about Captain Marvel in 2020? SO and I talked a bit about how politics played into the film, but if you really want to hear about that nonsense, you should watch any YouTube video with Captain Marvel in the title. So that was our odd encounter with a full-fledged neckbeard, complaining about a movie from a year ago. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 46. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories and sent in stories for use in this video. A special shout out to Inufy, who helped save the video at the last minute. We did have the stories just about, but we suddenly found ourselves a story down. And she saved the day by typing up the Ponybeard story for us. Okay, well, if all has gone according to plan for me, I will have gotten an extra few days off this week. That will have balanced out my not quite a week off from the previous week. Right, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.